folks, how y'all doing? I'm here to tell you a story tonight about guilty pleasure and the woman who showed me the value of it. No, it's not like that. It's my grandmother. It's my grandmother. My grandmother lived to be 90 years old, and she went through a whole lot of things in her life. A lot of joy. Thank you. A lot of joy, a lot of pain. And she always just sort of handled things. Like things would come to her and just roll over her. She lived through a lot of different things and always had this positive attitude. And maybe one reason why was because of a guilty pleasure she had, or maybe guilty might not be the right word as we've discovered tonight, but every Wednesday was her day. If you wanted to see Grandma, you didn't do it on Wednesday because Wednesday was her day. She always did something. She gave herself something on a Wednesday, and usually it was like a day off. Now, when she was young and she had children and commitments, it was just something simple, like maybe a trip down to the corner drugstore to get a fountain drink or a cup of coffee, just a little time out. But I discovered her Wednesdays off when I was about 8 years old. I stayed with her at her house, and I went along on one of these days off, these Wednesdays. Well, we jumped on the bus, got into the city that being Philadelphia, and we took a lot of little trips. We did some shopping. There's a big Reading Terminal Market. It was very much like the Central Market here. We walked around there and just sort of strolled. There was no real rush. There was no, hey, come on, hurry up. We just walked around. We went into an art gallery, went into an antique store. But the real high mark of the day, we went to John Wanamaker's. That's the old department store in Philadelphia. And old John, as they called him, the man who designed Wanamaker's, modeled it after a lot of things in Europe. And they had a tea room high in the top in the John Wanamaker's building. It's a beautiful room, giant, real tall ceilings, big windows, a lot of light. This is where they had fashion shows, and you couldn't really order lunch in the tea room. It was just tea. And for me, a little kid at 8 years old, I'm like, wow, this is sort of out of my element. But my grandmother was not. She's kind of what you'd call a middle-class lady, a working gal. But on Wednesdays, she'd wind up in the tea room. We used to be the other society ladies and whatnot. We come into the front of the tea room, and the man at the desk says, "Hello, Marie." So I thought, wow, this is her place. She says, "This is my grandson. I'm bringing him to the tea room for the first time." So we sit down. Here comes the tea. And for the first time in my life, I had tea in a china cup. And the tea came in a little tea kettle, a little silver tea kettle. I poured it into my cup. And I followed my grandmother's lead, and I squeezed lemon into my tea, another first for me. And the sugar's in these little lumps. And I'm thinking, wow, this is nothing like my grandmother's house. This is nothing like my grandmother's surroundings, but she's really comfortable here. And then we just sit and drink tea. We don't talk. We don't have an agenda. Just sit and drink tea. And I see like she's almost like a sleepy calm comes over her face. And like I realize, wow, this is her place. This is where like all the stuff that's in life doesn't matter. The things that are coming in the future, they don't matter. Maria's sitting in the tea room having a cup of tea. So that taught me the value of pleasure. Guilty pleasure or gifted pleasure, a pleasure we give ourselves. So I try to think about that when things are getting a little bit crazy. Stop. If you have a cup of coffee or a drink, something that's going to take about 3 minutes, the world's not going to pass you by. But for those 3 minutes, noise is off, empty your head, empty your thoughts, and enjoy tea. Or enjoy a beer, or enjoy a cup of coffee. And on those, some days when I'm at home, I'll reach to the bottom of the china cabinet and pull out the good china and put my coffee in that. And I remember Marie and her gifted pleasure, giving herself that little moment that allowed the rest of her life to just sort of roll along. Maybe she went from Wednesday to Wednesday. As long as she could make it to Wednesday, she was going to be okay. Thank you very much.